Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Pain-Free Posture. Please grab 2 blocks today and a strap, and we will get started. All right, we're going to start at your feet as your foundation. And my idea about some of the foot stuff that I've understood is changing based on some of what Pete Egoscue talks about and some of what Shirley Sharman talks about, both famous physical therapists or body workers. And Shirley kind of said, you know, if you have stiff feet, that's just what you got. And I think I'm recognizing that the stiffness in our feet has a lot to do with how stiff our calf muscles are and how little we take our knees over our toes into that position, where the soleus, the muscle back here, acts as a brake and as a bender. So if your ankles have turned in or your knees have turned a different direction, it will definitely impact the way that your ankle moves and the stiffness of your feet. And I can tell you over this last week of doing this new Knees Over Toes program, my feet are changing. The weight is on my feet is changing. So let's keep going after some of that. So I want you to take your feet into pigeon toe and then screw your feet into the ground so that you're creating a little bit of external rotation in the hip. So as you take it into that position to straight, we have some torque at the pelvis so that you're using your butt muscles to help keep it there. And then go ahead and go into a bent knee position. Let's go.
Pigeon toe?
Screw them into the ground. So start pigeon toed and then go to straight by creating that torque. Yep, and then I'm gonna have you do the same thing. Take one step forward and screw your foot into the ground so that you're in that short foot position. And then this time I want you to focus on the back foot more than the front foot. And I want you to just go up and down, bending that knee over your toe. Down and up. And then 10 times on the other side, so switch your feet. Do that same thing a little bit. Take your feet from slightly pigeon-toed, screw them into the ground so that you create torque at the hip and some glute activation. And don't go so far that your heel is going in, so maintain a straight foot, but let that torque happen all the way up into the hip. And if you have tightness in some IT band or quads, you might feel that there. The IT band, the glute comes from the outside, hooks into the IT band and goes to the outside of that leg. And if that leg is rotated internally or externally, or your foot is dropped, you're pronated in that ankle, then that IT band can take some of the work. Yeah, down and up, focusing on that back foot 10 times. Bend the knee and straighten. Good. Now take your right foot and bring it forward. Bring your back knee over your toes with a straight foot that way. And then I want you to bend as deeply into that back knee as possible. And then just stand up like you're taking a step backwards. Bend forward into that foot. Yep, and then stand up. And as you go down, let your body lean backwards so that your core muscles are working. As soon as you go into that levered load backward a little bit, you're going to weight your body differently and then stand up. Good. Down and up. and begin to work different muscles in the foot, in the ankle. That base layer of muscles that we may not even have had access to for some time should start to fire. Good. Switch sides. Kind of screw that foot into the ground again so that it's stable. That arch can even lift as you do that, so the glute works. And then bend deeply into that front knee. How far can you go? And then lean your body backwards. You'll feel your core turn on, and then press up to straight. Down and press. How far can that knee go over that toe? How far can you lean back? And then step back up. Awesome. Come down onto your back, foot circles, point flexes. Coming down onto your side and rolling onto your back. If you're worried about spine hygiene at all, could have directed that a little better. Go ahead and stretch. Let's go left leg first. Right leg down on the floor. Pull your toes back. So find this muscle in the front of your shin. This is called your anterior tibialis. Point and flex that right foot first, 10 times. The one that's out straight. So just left foot on the floor, point and flex right foot. Find that anterior tib. And then hold that foot back. Keeping it back, pull the left leg in, 20 circles all the way around. You should have a slight curve still in your lower back. Your ribs and pelvis directly over each other. Reverse your circle. Keep that right foot active. I want that front shin, this muscle right here, to be working this whole time. Point and flex. And then before you switch, 10 more, point and flex with that right foot. So all the way forward, try to touch your toes to the floor. Get the muscles of the bottom of your foot to hug up into that arch, and then flex it back. Point, flex, point, flex, point, flex, point, flex, point, and flex. And then switch legs. Pulling that leg in, point and flex with the left foot 10 times first. How far can you get that ankle to go? Can you find muscles in the underneath side of your calf where your Achilles hooks in to the gastroc? Can you find those muscles? And even muscles deeper than that. You have muscles that connect to your big toe. See if you can find that extensor hallucis longus muscle. And work from the big toe all the way up the bottom of your foot into the calf up to behind the knee. See if you can find that muscle. And then then pull the foot back so that you're turning on this front shin, that anterior tib, while you do the 20 rotations all the way around. Reverse. Point and flex. And both feet on the ground, arms lying backward on the mat. Bring your arms up, touch above your head.
Wait, we have to do the second round of point and flex.
All the way up, all the way down, and just notice what's happening at the level of your pelvis. If your feet are on the floor, can you make contact with all of your toes on the floor? And then if you imagine a footprint on the ground, that it goes across the toes, the outside of the arch touches the ground, and then the heel, but the inside arch is lifting. So as you root your feet into the floor, can you create that lift all the way up? And does that change some of the musculature in the hamstrings or the glutes that are active if you root the feet down? Then low back has some arch. Gentle rounding in your thoracic back. We're going after opening that up a little bit. Arm glides. Letting the shoulder blade rotate as your arm moves up and also coming back down. Stay in a pain-free movement. If there's pain, just simply press your hands down into the floor and start to work some of the muscles around the back of the shoulder that maybe need to change position or free up the shoulder blade and the arm bone. So that's an option. If moving, you could also have your arms just out like this. If moving into that arm glide produces some kind of impingement, then take a more gentle approach in your upper back today. All right, let's use our spine hygiene. Arm and leg coming over, so extend that left leg out on the floor, rolling over, and then using your body to push up. Hands and knees, hands off the floor, coming into a lunge, come back to standing. We're staying with your feet. I want you to do that same thing again. So start with the pigeon toe, screw your feet into the ground a little bit so that you find some butt muscles. And then straight legs, go up onto your toes 10 times. Just start to explore. How does your ankle move there? Can you go up and balance? Do you have good access to all of those muscles? Now bend your knees, knees over toes, let your booty stick out a little bit, let your shoulders open. As you do that, we're gonna pull on some muscles in our knees and hips. That's gonna create more arch. We're also gonna break up the line of fascia that goes from the heel up to the knee so we get more access to the soleus. And your soleus and your butt muscle, they work together. Thank you. Camera. Lift. And lower, calf raises with knees bent.
Are our toes together?
Nope, you can have them hip width apart.
For me, that would have been the video with, oh yeah, the one where her tags and everything out.
Thank you.
It would distinguish it for me. Sometimes I look at it and I go, when did we do this one?
Okay, then toes up. So try to balance on your heels. If you have a wall easily accessible, you can go to the wall and lean against it and walk your feet out and then pull your toes up off the floor that way. If you're just at your mat, that's fine to just work it this way. We're finding that anterior tib again. You could even explore, could you hold your toes up and walk?
I have to do this every time I see my neurologist.
If you're at the wall, up and down.
This is the, he said if I could do this, not doing surgery.
Good. No drop foot. Yeah, that's a test. It's a test for drop foot. That's a test for sciatic nerve impingement if you can't hold your foot up like that. Okay, one side. So you can put your toes on the ground or find your balance. Calf raises one side, 10 more. And then switch. 80% of your weight on one. Make sure your foot is straight. Excellent. Okay. You may choose to do this with a block. It may make it slightly less stable. So if you're worried about stability, maybe just keep your foot on the floor. What we're gonna do is a big lunge. I'm gonna put my toes up on my block so that I cheat the ankle a little bit so that I can get into a deeper lunge and let my knee go over my toes. You can decide if the foot being flat on the floor feels more stable to you, go for it. This is going to give you access to letting that knee go more forward, compressing that joint a little more, getting some more synovial fluid in that joint. You decide where you're at. What we want to notice is what's the difference between the two sides. So you have muscles, your quad muscle as well as the IT band that we talk about down the side, the hip flexor on the back leg, a number of hip flexors, but quads and psoas, or iliacus and psoas. One goes from the inside of that hip bone and the other goes from your low back all the way down to your leg. And that can change the way that your leg is rotated. And we know that muscles activate when they're in the right position. Go ahead and switch sides. So if your leg is turned, you may not have good access to those muscles because of the position that it's in. You also may not have access because it just hasn't gone there in a while. Second side, and just notice between the back hip, do you have a tighter back hip? How about a shoulder? This whole chain is related. Cross your body is related, this whole right side. My right hip flexor is always tighter than my left. That's been true for a long time. The tightness of the front inhibits this butt muscle from working well. So how is it in your body? Do you get the glute to actually be able to take that leg behind you? Does that happen, or is there too much tension in the front? You could root your tailbone down toward the floor to take a little bit of the arch out of your low back and see if you can squeeze this butt muscle and get that hip flexor to let go. Come out of it. We're gonna go up and down. So as we strengthen some of the muscles around that knee, So back to the first side again. You could also use ski poles for this if you wanted more balance. That could be helpful. You can stay here, this is an option. Let that knee go over your toes. And then if it feels okay for your body, press that knee off the floor. Use the muscles a lot around that front leg, and then come back down, set the knee down. Press it back up and down. See if you can do that with as little wobbles around the knee as possible. And switch. Lifts. If it's comfortable, again, just hanging out here, you're going to get a lot of benefit too. They're hard, aren't they?
Yeah.
Good. Cats and dogs. Allow your pelvis to move over the top of those thigh bones. You may need to give a little wiggle if something adjusted there. See how that moves all the way up into the space between your shoulder blades. Notice as you tuck what happens, and as you move into extension, how even is it between the shoulder blades? As you move your head into flexion and extension, we're also gently flossing those nerves that go from the head down through the spinal column, all the way down, out through the glutes, down to your toes. Point your toes. See if you can get the top of the ankle to go all the way flat. Can you find calf muscles working even here in a cat and dog? Muscles of the arch of the foot hugging into that space. And then onto your back again. Setting the hip down, rolling onto your back. So we worked a lot of the leg into that split hip position. Now go ahead and stretch both legs out straight on the floor. Hands underneath your lower back to have a little bit of space. If your shoulder doesn't internally rotate enough to do that, you may just let your hands be out here. You can turn them down and press, fingers spread wide, press down into the floor. If the internal rotation is healthy enough in that shoulder, go ahead and do it. Pelvis in line with your rib cage, check, because this is where those of us that have a little scoliosis, we can lie down and the rib cage can be out of alignment with the pelvis. So just feel like, are you straight up and down? And then turn your attention to your breathing. Flex your feet so your anterior tib is active, thighs tight. And then rotate the leg all the way out. See if you can get your pinky toes on the floor. Can you find it? Go ahead and bend the knee. Let's just go right into the glutes. So take the thighs out of it. Take your pinky toes all the way to the floor. Knees can bend. Yep. Now press the pinky toe side of your foot down into the floor and fire the butt muscles. You feel them on both sides? Are they working? Bring your feet back to straight. Then take it out again. Knees can stay bent. Pinky toe side of the foot. Press the pinky toe side of the foot down into the floor. Activate glutes. Glutes oppose what muscles? Hip flexors. Glutes are hip extenders and external rotators. So right now, we're using them as an external rotator, finding them, right? And I want you to feel both sides. And just notice, do they feel different between the two sides? I'm gonna take my arms out of this position so I can roll my shoulders down and tuck my shoulders down a little bit more. Maybe if you have a bit of scoliosis in your upper back or a change in the upper back, then rolling the shoulders more open will let that glute activate better. Bring it back in. Go into that. Let's do 3 more. External rotation, pinky toe side of the foot, pressing into the ground until you find butt muscles. You got them? Both sides active?
Yes, ma'am.
Back in. For those of us that have a medial femur, knees that point in toward the middle, that's an indication that our glutes don't activate very well on one or both sides. That often means that a hip flexor is tight. So just being able to find these glutes and allow psoas or iliacus to open can even out our hips, can change what's happening in the hip socket. 1 more. Press pinky toe side of the foot down into the floor. Can you stretch the legs all the way straight and keep them there? And you're gonna get glute max a little bit more and less just deep 6. Keep finding them, legs straight. And back in.
That was hard.
Yeah, that was hard. Awesome. Okay, now bend your knees. We're gonna go to knee drops. I would like you to go all the way to the left side, knees separated more than hip distance apart, and then keep your pelvis fairly level with the floor. So if you imagine that both butt cheeks kind of stay rooted on the floor, then we actually get rotation into the hip itself.
So we're trying to keep both butt cheeks.
Yeah, it probably won't happen, but just don't let it go all the way up. So keep the intention of both butt cheeks kind of down or torso down on the floor, just with that mild rotation, and really let the rotation happen in the leg. And so these outer hip muscles in my right hip are tight. So when I hold this side down and keep the rotation out of my back, then it forces this rotation a little more into that hip. And just check in, is that okay for you? Go up and over to the other side. So rooting down as best you can, both hips, allowing internal rotation to happen in the legs. And again, you can roll your shoulders kind of underneath you, down and back. That may change how much internal rotation you get. You could hook a heel on top of that knee and allow a little more. Take a deep breath. You can use Ujjayi breath, like a yoga breath. Deeply inhale, fill the lungs, exhale completely. Again. Back to the first side again. If you didn't hook a knee on this side, maybe you can this time. So feeling both hips kind of root down, hook a heel on top of that knee. So my left heel is on top of the right knee, gently guiding that into a little more length. Muscles in the front here, tensor fascia lata, IT band, glute. Shoulders rolled, down and back. Find that deep breath again. Even up into the torso, your obliques, your psoas, that could all be affected here. Gently bring it back up. Both feet on the floor. Rock it backward and forward, pelvic tilts. Grab your strap. Let's find some more butt muscles. Make your strap so that both legs can go into that strap.
At the knees, above the knees, the ankles.
Above the knees. And then tighten it down, feet on the floor. Once again, curving your low back. Double check again that your pelvis and rib cage is aligned and stable. Excuse me. Roll your shoulder blades underneath your back. Keep a curve in your neck so that all three curves in your spine are still there. And then press out. We're going to create an isometric. Out and release. I'll give you 2 minutes for these. Press and release out against that strap. And just find the muscles on the outside of your hips that do that press. I'd like it to get tired, kind of at the bottom of that glute. Press, release. Finding yourself balancing on your sacrum. Make sure your feet are straight or even slightly pigeon-toed. And then keep working on finding both sides of your glutes.
I have a hard time turning off one of my muscles after I do this a while.
Turning off one of the glutes.
Yeah,
Like as you release it, it wants to stay working.
and it wants to stay clenched.
Okay, hold out against that strap. This time, take your hips up. Lengthen your tailbone down toward the floor. Hip bones up. Use the glutes. And then come down, set the hips down. All the way up. All the way down. 20 lifts. And release. Go ahead and take this strap away. Let the leg go out straight again. Use your roll arm and knee together to come onto your belly. Bring your hands up, face down, both hamstrings coming up. Bending the legs. Let's go one at a time. Reach back, grab your foot if you can. If you need to roll onto your side to do that quad stretch, go for it. Otherwise, try to get your heel to your bum. Lengthen your knee away from you. And then if it feels okay, start to pull your knee off the floor and take your leg behind you. So this is where we want the work that we just did in the butt muscles to direct the head of the femur so that as the leg goes into some extension, it's happening with the glute and not just the hamstring, so that the front of the hip doesn't get shoved into the front of the hip socket. If the glute is active, it helps pull the head of the femur back, and then you have more freedom of movement, and then release. Switch sides. Bend the knee, heel to butt, lengthen your knee away from you, open the front of that thigh. And then if it feels okay to you, lift that knee off the floor, start to take that hip back or the hand and arm up toward the sky, the shoulder can open. Getting some hip extension, getting that femur to move back in that hip socket. And switch. First side again. Yeah, you could go both hands if it feels good to you. If that's a possibility, knee away from you. Press the foot away, foot into hand, hand into foot. Use the shoulders to open. Stay in pain-free movement. And release. Switch. Add the breath. And then press back up onto your hands and knees. Round and arch cats and dogs. Allow, once again, the pelvis to roll over the top of the femurs. And then tuck your tailbone, open your shoulders. And then grab both of your blocks. Blocks by your side to press down so that you activate the muscles, the serratus muscles on the side. And first just see, can you lift yourself up off your blocks so that your butt comes up off the floor?
Or is the intention enough?
Intention is enough. Press, lift, and then take one foot off the floor. I'm realizing I'm dark and dark today. So, butt up off the floor, one leg off the floor. Hold. Release. If you don't have short arms like I do, you may want to just do this on the floor. That's okay. I just can't press up very well from there. Take that other leg off the floor. come down. Pull your legs in and see if you can get them both off the floor. Press up, lift. Release.
I don't think I have the intention to get my feet off the floor. Okay,
One more.
Visualize that.
And release.
One at a time.
Nice. Okay, take both of your blocks and set them by your side. You can take your hands behind you or keep your arms off the floor. Take your leg up and over the block, out to the side, and then back up and over. Do your best to keep your low back straight up and down so that you're not over rounding or working into that flexion in the back. So if you need to have kickstands, even if you need to lay back a little bit so that your low back can stay in a good position while you find the muscles that work and lift that leg. Yeah, you can put them lower if you want to.
Thank you, cheater. That's me, cheater.
One more.
We got that hip flexor nice and loose, and now we're gonna tighten it up
Just
again.
use it. Well, sometimes it's tight because it's weak. Ready?
Every time I step over the doggy gate, I think of our class.
And how functional you are that you can do that.
That I can even do it, yes.
I switched sides. Did everybody get that? Okay.
Some days, since we have this whole new class now since COVID, we should do a patch class.
Yeah, we should
I
do a
mean,
patch
because
class.
it used to be like half the class would leave, but I don't know, you might be able to get
Okay.
some people to
Let's do
stay
it.
now.
What does it mean if I can do like the taller one with one leg and not with another leg?
You got one hip flexor that can do it and one that
Means you're
can't.
just like everyone else.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Come
I'll
into
take
a
that.
downward facing dog
One side
pose.
works better than the other. What's a patch class?
When we used to do
Patches, when we used to do
Spider-Mans and
bear
stuff
crawl
across the
and
floor.
Spider-Man,
Yeah,
and
I like
jumping,
that.
and
No jumping.
under and over things.
I like
Work those ankles. Go into that
The bosu's
full
out.
flexion. Even if your knee's bent, you can let that knee go over your toes. Find some length in the back side of that calf.
I love those classes.
If you could, Kevin, make your kitchen a patch.
In the house, the only way I get around is like jump from bosu to bosu. That would be my idea of an awesome house.
Fun house.
Why are you giving away all your furniture?
Yeah. Because I'm moving.
Are you
No, I
going?
am.
Are you going somewhere?
No, I'm buying nothing. I've been giving away a ton of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's your choice. Both blocks up, heels up on your block. Last knees over toes, working down into our squat. Really let the knees come forward.
Well, I have to give away the furniture so I can get those bosu's in. Can you just see me? Oh, here I come, Mike. Just a minute, I'll be right there.
Loves the BOSUs. Need one of those black and white tiles.
Take whatever version of this your body will allow. So do let your knees come far over your toes. I want the shin to be as much of an angle so that the low back doesn't over round. And then just notice where you're at. See if you can put a little more arch into your low back. So even grab the front of your knees and stick your tailbone back behind you a little bit more. And let the low back come into that arch. Now, if you're working at the computer today for a long period of time, I suggest you do a few minutes like this. It'll be a challenge.
This is big for you, huh?
Yeah, do you see that my knee is doing this? Hallelujah.
It's pretty cool.
Take a deep breath. See if you can put one more little bit of space so it's stretching the butt muscles, allowing the head of the femur to rotate into that socket like it needs to. Let it go all the way up between your ribs and your lungs into your shoulders. Take a full deep breath. And then come all the way up out of it. Nice. Find what
Every time I squat down at work, I'm like, thank goodness.
ever
I'm not-
position you can find for your meditation.
Thank goodness I can still do this.
Meditation.
As you settle in, let's start with 5 deep breaths today. And as you feel the breath move, notice where it's going. Acknowledge that the breath is this link kind of between the worlds, between the link between your physical body and whatever else is out there. You can use the breath to change your mental state, emotional state. You can use the breath to shift from sympathetic to parasympathetic nervous system response. Your nervous system is connected to your brain. And as your body settles, allow the breath to function on its own. Simply allow the person, your name, your beliefs, your things you gotta do, to just drift to the back so that you can show up right here for the next 5 minutes and be present to whatever's arising. You can gently hum an om if your mind needs something. Shift into the experience of being. Turn your attention onto the very aspect that is alive. And then turn attention back on itself. If you're perceiving your aliveness, from where does that perception come? With your mind quiet, gently open your heart. This energy of being alive is something that we all share. Take a moment to open your heart to the source of that aliveness. When we're tapped into the source of that aliveness, it is intelligent. And if something needs to be healed or repaired in your body, any aspect of your body, your physical body or your emotional body or your wisdom body, just allow that to happen or ask for that help. And then when our vibration is elevated, we can walk in the world and it's contagious. We can help elevate and heal other people. Bring a little more compassion to the world today. Take one deep breath together. Thank you, as always, for being part of this community, for working on your body, for being guinea pigs and trying new stuff with me. Hopefully you are also feeling that that is shifting or changing some aspects in your body that feels positive. Okay, have an awesome day. Thank you so much.